Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. We're doing our weekly series on the Ahsoka, new Ahsoka episodes for season one. This is episode three. I forget the name already. Time to Fly, and we're gonna get in here, start off with our initial impressions, then get into a little bit more of the specifics of the episode, and then finish up with our ratings like we normally do. So, who would like to start with first impressions this week? I know Greedo went first last week.
Yeah, not me this time.
How about Gundark this time?
Okay. I enjoyed this episode. I've watched it twice. I
Hmm.
enjoyed it more the second time. And there were things like the Jedi training and some Easter eggs in there, and then the lightsaber fight in space. I thought was neat. Those were highlights for me.
Okay.
But get into more details about that later. So overall, I enjoyed it. My one caveat is that I still think it's moving too slowly. It felt like the first three episodes should have maybe been the first two episodes. Maybe it needed to be edited more effectively or move along at a better pace. But I still really enjoyed it. What about you, Caroline?
Uh, I liked it overall. I thought it was a very slow episode. Um, I liked. I feel like this was a missed opportunity episode, which we'll get into more details on that here when we start talking about certain scenes. But I really felt like there were some missed opportunities in this episode. I do wish the pacing was a little quicker, and but other than that, it was again not bagging on it. It wasn't a terrible episode. It just wasn't quite as good as I hoped it would be, or I thought it had the potential to be.
Um, my initial thoughts was this was probably the worst episode for me. Just because I'm not sure anything was accomplished, and it didn't feel like there was much stakes for them being in danger, like flying towards the enemy ship, and all the graphics were cool, but uh the fighter combat, I was telling Corellian, you were never any doubt who was going to die in the fighter
Yeah,
combat, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah,
exact
You straight
number
up
of
call
extra
like this
people
one,
that
this
we
one,
don't
this one
know
will
yeah.
who were
die.
wearing masks
That's exactly what
were
happened.
the ones that died.
Yeah.
And I did like the training parts, but I didn't think the pacing was good, or the editing or direction. The music was great. The music was trying to make more happen than what was actually happening on the screen, I felt like. And this episode was over too fast for me, and it ended with a really nice shot of is he Baylor or Balon? I think it's
Baylor.
Balon. With his whatever his minions are. I'm not sure if they're droids or more Knights of Ren or what behind him. And he says, "Go find the Jedi. They're hiding in the woods." And there's no tension still, because these guys look like just the typical people that Ahsoka will wipe the floor with again. So
Exactly.
I feel like all we have to look forward to is a fight in the woods, which so far the fights haven't been that exciting or well choreographed. Despite them trying to throw a wrinkle with Sabine being injured, there was no consequences for that. So I just don't feel like the stakes so far are high enough to create tension. I think we're just going to get more killing time fighting some minions in the woods next week,
Yeah.
is what I feel like. And I already ready to get to Thrawn, and move
Yeah.
this thing along. I don't, but I'm beginning to think Thrawn's going to be for the very end. And so anyway, that's my initial thoughts. Was it had two things of my least favorite things: fighting in space with your spacesuit on and your lightsabers, and which I didn't even know was one of my least favorite things until I saw it. And then the Purrgil, the space whales. Yeah, it was
I knew
way too
you. I felt
slippery.
your pain. There was a great
Yeah.
disturbance in the forest when the space whale showed up. It was
Look, if
Greedo.
you like Purrgil, I have nothing against you whatsoever. You can like Purrgil and space whales, but they're whales with they're squid whales. They're whales with tentacles. And it seems like in Star Wars, when in doubt, just throw tentacles on something. Just, no. So and they have wide open eyes in space. It's gotta be freaking cold and difficult to deal with on your eyes. And and they undulate through space, like they move their bodies to get somehow. I don't get it. I just never understood the concept, and they're just exactly like whales but with tentacles. So anyway, I wasn't happy to see them, but I realize they're now part of this, and
Yeah.
we're going to see more, and they have some link to the Force that they're not giving up on. Just like we're going to see wolves again, and we're going to see Lothcats again, and we're going to see that bird that follows Ahsoka around again.
Yeah.
So I would expect to see that too. So
Yeah.
all the stuff from the cartoons.
All right. So let's talk about the training sequence. How do we feel about the whole Sabine being trained by Ahsoka? And I know that's kind of a bone of contention because she doesn't have force powers, but that was addressed somewhat in the post training scene. So what do you guys take away from this training scene, and kind of what's the point of training someone who's not a force sensitive?
I'll say real quick, that's my question.
Yeah.
Is what's the point? I don't
Why are we
understand
doing
what's
this?
going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's presented me with a clear case in the show for what they're trying to prepare her for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she already has Mandalorian weaponry that counters Jedi abilities. There's very few Jedi left in the galaxy. We happen to have 2 against us right now, so it makes sense. But what does Ahsoka see coming that she needs an apprentice for who doesn't have abilities with the Force? And why make her try to be a Jedi when there's not really any Jedi left to fight? And you
Well,
know what I
that's
mean? Why not
why she said
why
that
not lean
that
into her
conversation.
strengths? Why not lean into her
No, that
strengths of Mandalorian her culture?
that conversation she had with Hu Yang, the robot, the droid, where she said, "I don't need her to be a Jedi. I need her to be herself." And she said that Hu Yang said, "Well, she would be an unacceptable candidate to be a Jedi," and she said, "By their standards." And he said that their standards had survived for a millennium, and she said, and then they failed. And so it's like, I don't know. Uh, he keeps trying to bring her back to the Jedi and try to make her acknowledge that she's actually using the Jedi way,
Mm-hmm.
because he ended that conversation by saying, "Well, yeah, you come from a long line of non-traditional Jedi, so I guess that means that she would fit right in." So it seems like there's this push and pull as to whether or not Ahsoka is really part of the Jedi Order, or to what degree she still embraces Jedi teachings. And then you see her use Jedi training. The one thing I liked about that was the Easter egg I mentioned Zatochi. Is that what it's called? The blind swordsman.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
called the technique Zatochi, and I thought that was a real nice callback to the samurai
I missed that they use that word.
origins.
That's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
they'll
turns to she turns to Hu
teach
Yang and says, "Okay, well, is she ready? Why don't we try Zatochi?" And Hu Yang says, "Are you sure she's ready
You
for that?"
sure? Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a
it's
big
like the
difference
moment
between
where you
the master swordsman of Japan who could just mow down countless people, although he was blind, and someone who can't do anything because they don't have the Force.
Yeah.
yeah. But see, I wonder, is she like trying to figure out to what degree Sabine can wield the Force, if at all? Because they sat down
That's what I
at the
want to
table
know. I
also
don't
and had.
understand the
You're
goal.
not saying, yeah. So
Yeah.
you
But
have no
maybe it's just the goal to
motivation there.
help Sabine find what she's capable of and the best uh, powers that she has. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe the goal is to see if she has any force sensitivity in using a lightsaber. And I don't know why this Zatochi technique couldn't work even if you weren't force sensitive. If you're learning to
Of
use other
course. Yeah.
senses than just your sight. So I don't have a problem with that. I think she's like feeling out. She's trying to help Sabine feel out her own way to how she would integrate things related to the Jedi into her whatever she's going to be as a warrior.
Yeah.
So far that hasn't bothered me the way it's
Brilliant. You have
bothered
anything to
you.
say to that?
As far as just the training part,
Yeah, and the whole thing of she wants her to be herself. We talked about this a little bit
yeah.
while we were watching it.
I don't know, because we already established in Rebels that, I mean, we know she's Mandalorian. We know she trained under Kanan to use the dark saber. Not that she has a dark saber now, but she can still maybe incorporate some of that technique into using a lightsaber. But I don't know why she's not. I mean, and again, it's a lack of information that we're getting. We don't know what her end game is, other than just what she told Huang is like, "Hey, I just want her to be herself." Like, well, then being herself is training with what she did with the dark saber and just training more in sword technique versus training to actually channel the Force. So I don't know. I'm perplexed as both of you are as to what is the end game here. What's the motivation?
Yeah,
What's the
I
point?
wonder why rigidly keep at someone to do something when you're just trying to let them be themselves. That seems the opposite
Yeah.
of I want her to be herself by saying,
But that's
my
what good
question was,
mentors do. You know,
no,
that
but
good
well,
mentors
you've been
make
a
you
much more of a
think.
mentor than me, so you would know. But my question is, does Sabine know? Does Sabine know that?
Yeah,
Has she ever said to her, "I want you to be yourself and fulfill your thing"? Because that would seem to require more input from her.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
yeah.
she's just trying to break down her walls, but right now, Sabine's just trying to cooperate with whatever Ahsoka tells her to do,
Yeah.
and Ahsoka doesn't seem to have a plan. If they had one scene where the droid said she has no potential, and I told her, and she said, "You can't sense what I sense because you're a droid.
Mm-hmm.
Just wait and see." You know, if
Yeah.
she said something like that, then I would be holding on for what Ahsoka sees, why she's doing this, that she's expecting something to happen, or any kind of indication. But they're just leaving it so open that I don't understand why she's putting her through it when she's already got a skill set. The Mandalorians specifically develop a lot of their weapons to fight Jedi or to counter not having the Force. They can pull their weapons to them. They can levitate using the jetpacks. They can, you know what I mean? So it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
just odd. I just not grasping what is going on. I guess if Ahsoka let us know, even on the sly, like there's something there. But when you take someone that seems to have no Force potential and they're reiterating that she has no Force potential, then you're wondering, why grind this person down with something? It's like I'll never hear like a dog. I'll never hear the frequencies the dog hears, no matter what I do. I mean, unless I get a machine or something, which is what the Mandalorians do. So
Mm-hmm.
why would you sit there and blow a dog whistle at me for 2 weeks straight? It's like,
Knowing I'll
just
never hear it.
concentrate.
Yeah.
Let go. You'll hear the dog whistle eventually. It's
Yeah.
like I don't hear it. I'm never gonna freaking hear it. So that's the part that I just find confusing. I get the theme. I get thematically. I understand what you're saying thematically, and I understand. I just don't think they wrote it very clear. I
Mm-hmm.
think the
Yeah.
writing it's another case of the writing being weird and trying to leave too much open ended without explaining quite enough. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I love anytime they talk about the Force. I will say, I'm not saying a non-Force sensitive person shouldn't be able to learn the Force, because when we first saw Star Wars in the theater, I thought Han Solo could learn the Force.
Yeah.
When he was saying, "I've never seen anything that makes me think there's all powerful Force controlling everything." Well, I thought once he saw it,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe he would, start to believe. And if he believed enough, I
Yeah.
thought he could probably feel the Force some, maybe not like people who did it are dedicated to it and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like intuition, prayer, all these things that we do normally, um, trying to influence, the life force or whatever to look favorably on us, to, the things we feel about, I got a creepy feeling about going in this place. I don't want to go in
Mm-hmm.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think I think a lot of times they try to make people force sensitive when they're remarkable in Star Wars, and that takes away some of the remarkableness of them just being regular humans. And I think you shouldn't explain everything. Like if Han makes an incredible shot or does the no look shot on the stormtrooper, it shouldn't be, because he could sense the Force necessarily. I mean, he's
Right. Just because he's a
he's a
good
remarkable dude.
gunslinger. Yeah.
He's practiced. He's seen everything.
Right.
But I just wish it was a little clearer what was going on, because they're charging headfirst, like right now, into extreme danger, and
Mm-hmm.
they seem to be like picking a weird dynamic that isn't really working to work with each other. I know it's about growth and that it's going to be an arc, by the end of the series, but I just thought Ahsoka would have a little bit better of a grasp on what she's doing, and we would know her reasons. We don't know anything.
Yeah, well,
So
this was the biggest missed opportunity for me, I thought, and as far as the discussion between Sabine and Ahsoka at the after the training was done, when they were sitting around the table, Ahsoka's basically giving her a wrap up of, I thought you did well, and this kind of stuff. Sabine's frustrated, and then the back and forth is there, and as I'm watching it, I'm thinking this is a great time for something we haven't had in a long while, which is a good philosophical discussion about the Force. And, not necessarily saying that we're going to get a Yoda Luke moment from Empire, but maybe the modern equivalent of that. And we didn't, instead, it was just getting to that point where I thought I could take that turn. And instead, we just get Huang calling us, oh, hey, I've got Hera on intercom for you or whatever. Oh, okay. And then, the to me, one of the worst lines, because it meant the end of the conversation, was this means that, hey, Ahsoka, I'll try my best. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like
It's for the
really?
Japanese audience.
Yeah, it's
Do
like
your best.
we missed this great
Let's all
opportunity
try
to
our
just get a
best.
throwaway line like that to end it. It's like
Yeah.
that didn't sit well with me. So I find it frustrating that we don't get the motivation for Ahsoka even doing this. We don't, we do feel Sabine's frustration with not being able to use the Force. But again, what's the end game? We have no idea. And she tried that little, thing just to pull the cup, and fortunately it didn't work. I was so afraid. If we got anything, I thought we were gonna get one slight little or something like that.
Yeah, it would waver.
Yeah, maybe just a slightly unusual, and maybe give her hope or something, but no, we got nothing. I'm on the side of the people who think I really don't want her to be Force sensitive necessarily. I think we've kind of got that handled in the Star Wars universe right now. We don't need someone else to just come out of nowhere and just be instant Force wielder. But if she does, and I think actually Greedo was making this point when we were talking about it the other day, if she does become a little bit more sensitive with the Force, I don't want her to suddenly turn into Rey Palpatine.
Yeah.
I don't want her to just be like, by the end of the season, she's pulling ships down and
Yeah.
But they've
spinning
laid that
sabers everywhere and
groundwork there
catching
by
them.
bringing up the Mandalorian Jedi again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
She could
scares
be
me, is
of the
what's going to
lineage of
happen.
the guy who built the dark saber and
One
all
of
that, and she
few,
could have all
yeah.
this latent.
Mhm.
The Ahsoka could know that. She could have gone and researched it and figured it out, and she's just not telling anyone. Otherwise, I don't know what she's like. I said, I thought we established who Sabine was in Rebels. I know you can change the character, but it just seems such an odd. I think that's why people who know Rebels are a little thrown by it, and people who don't know Rebels are a little thrown by it because there's just not an explanation. I'm on board for it. I want to see where it goes, but the writing in this show hasn't been very good to me. For me,
Mhm.
like,
It's been murky. Yeah.
yeah, I was telling him the most memorable line from the episode was "standard operating procedure" or "standard Jedi operating procedure." They keep repeating that like that's supposed to be a memorable line, or there's just no good humor,
Mhm.
really. There's no punchy dialogue, and there's no memorable lines, and you've got such a great wealth to draw upon. And they even repeated Luke's line from A New Hope, instead of coming
Yeah.
up with a new one. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm afraid that they're going to just follow the script writing routine of we're laying the groundwork and we're going to deliver on every single little thing we put in the groundwork.
Yeah.
So that would mean Sabine is going to be blinded at some point or unable to use her eyes, and we're going to see her advance in the Force by how she responds to being, in a
Mhm.
desperate situation, being unable to see and having to draw on the Force in her other senses. And every little lesson, every little thing we've seen her try to do is going to be reflected in the other thing that I think could happen that might actually be a lot more interesting is if Balon or Shin says, um, why are you messing around? We can show you how to get your powers. The Jedi way is over, and you're just beating your head against the wall. You're not going to get anywhere. But we can show you how to unlock it
Mhm.
with new stuff. Now that might be kind of interesting because then you get a character tempted by something that's become important to them that they don't have, that someone's offering them,
Right.
and you have
Absolutely.
that challenge against the trust between the mentor and the student
Mhm.
of like, do they really trust each other? Are they going to stick together? I don't see her, abandoning Ahsoka ever, of course, but it might just be an interesting angle they could play if they want to go that far.
That would be interesting for sure. Something unexpected.
I was glad to, like you, I was glad to see the Force addressed, and I think that question of why doesn't everyone use the Force is super important, and I
Mhm.
think it deserves more of an answer than midichlorians that we got in the movies.
Yeah.
Lucas has explained it in more detail in interviews and things, but they haven't addressed it in the movies or the canon that much.
Mhm.
I like the idea that they seem to be implying that if you dedicate your life and train like Chirrut or whatever, that you can
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
closer in touch with the Force, even if you can't pick up boulders and stuff like that. That the Force is a fact. It brought me back to Luke in in The Last Jedi, in some of his teachings, where he said, "The Force is not powers you have. The
Mhm.
Force is an energy field that's doing its own thing, and we're not that significant to it. It's like it is its own thing. It is not just being able to lift rocks and move things around and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool. They could bring that kind of stuff back in,
Yeah.
with
Agreed.
the way that conversation was going. But I bet that'll be the only conversation we get about the Force for the rest
Yeah,
of
I'm
it.
afraid it probably will be.
So,
But I would want, if I would want to know what I signed up for, if I was her, I would be asking those questions like, what are we doing here? It's like
right.
I can't feel the Force, so what are we doing? I just wish we had a little bit more of a clue, but it was a start, at least, I guess, of
Yeah.
trying to address it.
I'm just afraid, like you said, I think that's about all we're gonna get.
yeah.
So the next thing I would like to talk about is the scene where so they come out of hyperspace and they are ultimately discover the what they're building, what she's building is this giant, basically hyperspace ring. But we get the dogfight in space first. So let's talk about that. I know there's some good and there's some bad and there's some ugly with this scene for me anyway.
Why
One
don't you talk
thing,
about it?
what's that?
Why don't you tell us a little bit what you think about it?
Yeah.
Okay,
What's
so
good, bad, and ugly?
my take is, first of all, I wasn't, and again, this is nothing against Doug Chang. I mean, I love his designs. I think he's amazing and he's done such great work in Star Wars, but I just didn't care for the design of these ships at all. They looked, you know me, if you listen to these podcasts and for the last few years, I don't like stuff when it's too reminiscent of like Earth stuff. Like in Rogue One, my only beef was the rebel soldiers that had basically World War II helmets. Because when I look
Right.
at it, I feel like I'm
Broke
watching
your
Saving Private
immersion. Yeah.
Ryan. I'm watching Saving Private Ryan at that point. I'm not watching a Star. It takes me out of it because it's too much. So with this, it literally looked like a World War II fighter jet. The way the front circle was with the wings going out, like,
Mhm.
it just looks like a World War II fighter. And I get that what they're trying to do, that sort of sort of throwback to it, but to me, it takes me out of it. So because I'm not seeing
It
a spaceship
sounded
anymore.
like
Now I'm
it sounded
seeing,
like a old school fighter too.
right, even the
Everything
sound
about
effects
it.
of it.
Where
Exactly.
the guns were mounted would have been
Right.
firing through the old propeller,
That's
and
the
all
thing
that.
too.
And
Yeah, they were shooting right over where the
hmm
propeller would be. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it was a cross
So
between a Zero and the American fighter, that blue American fighter plane that was built a lot like
mhm.
that too.
Yeah, so
I
that
forget
I
which
didn't
one
care
that
for the
is.
design. And then like we already talked about, we already kind of picked out and predicted right away. Okay, so the two key characters, Marok and Shin, are not going to die, and then the other four will. And then bang, 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 they're dead. It's like that's
Mhm.
exactly what happened. So it was very predictable. The other aspect I was going to bring up, and I do want to get both of your takes on this, is it wasn't a shot for shot recreation, but it was it very much paid homage to the escape from the Death Star in the original Star Wars scene, when they were being chased by the TIE fighters and Luke and Han were in the turrets, because they had actually framed up exactly the same movement style and everything that the ships were doing. You could tell they were specifically trying to channel that scene. And part of it was okay. Part of it was, I thought, a little bit too much. But what did you guys think on that? What was your take on that scene?
I didn't like you got the I felt like the dogfight was underwhelming. It definitely wasn't the best dogfight in Star Wars, far from some of the top dogfight. But I did like the lightsabers, fighting with the lightsabers in outer space, which I know Greedo's gonna hate. I liked it.
I
I
didn't hate
watched
it. I
them.
just didn't like it.
It reminded me of Ahsoka in Clone Wars. It
Yeah,
reminded me of the kind of things that they would do, that the Jedi would do in Clone
which is
Wars.
why I liked it. I love that
Yeah,
Which is why they
for that
did
very
it.
reason, because it actually
yeah,
happened 3 or 4 times in Clone Wars. So I thought, oh, this is a
Yeah.
great throwback to that.
yeah. And I thought it wasn't overdone. When she was gonna go out and do it, I thought, oh no, this is gonna look really stupid. But it was very short,
No, it was
and it
done really
wasn't
well.
like,
Yeah, they didn't draw it out. Yeah.
yeah, and it looked relatively realistic. It's just it didn't look like she's flipping around in ways, you know. So
Right.
and I really love the way that part was shot. The moment when the door opens and she steps out
Mhm.
and she's framed against the round doorway and the two lightsabers ignite is just surreal. And the music was very well done at
Yeah,
that moment
really
too.
cool.
It
Yeah.
was kind
Music
of
for
an
the whole episode
iconic
was
ending.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I liked that part, but like you said, the dogfight was very predictable, and it was
Mhm.
it was just like maybe too much callback to other dogfights rather than doing its own thing.
Yeah.
So
I was just looking around this room to
that
see if
wasn't
you
too
had
bad.
any fighter ship figures so I could illustrate my point. But
Well, there's a
let's
TIE
just
fighter behind you on the dresser.
well, let's just assume that this cable is Ahsoka's ship, okay? And at one point, she's gonna go outside for some reason because the ship is helpless. Well, these are the enemy fighters coming in. They just keep going by and going by and going by. And as far as I know, you're in space. You could just pull up right next to it out of lightsaber range. Just point down at the engines and just choo 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 choo. Game over. Were they going by and firing at her? The only
Yeah.
defense they have is her two lightsabers. There's a Jedi Padawan there who knows that, but for some reason fires directly at her where she can deflect them instead of at the helpless freaking ship.
Yeah, that's
What
a
is the
great
goal?
point.
What is the
Yeah.
goal here? Is it to discourage them from following, capture them, or to kill them? If it is to kill them, you pull your ship up and stop at a range and you fire your torpedoes or your guns at the ship. It doesn't matter what this little Jedi up here does. She can
Exactly.
fly off into space and save herself if she wants, but her apprentice is toast, and her droid
Yeah.
is toast, and her ship and her any way to get anywhere is toast. So that just struck me. I lost respect for the villains because you got two of the main villains in the ships here, and neither one of them thought of this. They just kept strafing at her uselessly. And maybe it was chivalry, like we're going to give her a fighting chance. But I'd rather have a villain express that, and say, I'd rather Merrick say, like, I could take their ship out right now, and the woman go, no, let's take her out. Let's give her they're down. Let's give her a chance. I don't shoot people's ship out from under them when it's helpless. It's
Right.
something, to give us some kind of characterization other than I'm dumb. I'm gonna fire directly at the lightsabers. And then the fact that the dialogue is reduced to, oh, I thought you were going to get them. Stand back and watch me get them. The villains taunting each other, which I don't know if anybody told this Padawan, but taunting a Night Sister about
Yeah.
about shooting down a ship. You didn't quite shoot it down. Taunting her in any way when you don't need to is probably a really bad idea
Really
because
bad.
they're ephemeral allies at best, and as an enemy, they're nasty. I mean, just nasty. I don't know if anybody's told her this, but so I didn't. When you can't accomplish anything as a villain, and then you're sniping at your ally villains for no reason. I know they were trying to illustrate that they're cocky and stuff, but I just found the whole thing, all the dialogue on both sides was depressingly bad to me. And
Yeah.
the the only reason they did that was a throwback to Clone Wars. I don't want to see stuff that doesn't make any sense just to stroke the joy buttons of you Clone Wars people, fanatics. I love Clone Wars. I like it. But I just, if it was, I just don't want to see something in live action that's dumb. And we arrange it and we set it up and we manipulate the audience into
Yeah.
something stupid just so we can have a callback to Clone Wars. There's plenty of stuff to call back in Clone Wars. You don't have
Agreed.
to do all the
Agreed.
stupid stuff.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
sorry to just
The
be
part where the scene
critical, but
failed was the point you just brought up. It was the motivation of the villains was completely off there. They should have just gone for and destroyed the ship. And why focus on this Jedi? So.
or board. If you're gonna give them a fighting chance, board the ship. You
Mhm.
can go into space too, probably. I
Yeah.
mean, I know you're in a fighter, but you could. I'm sure they have some way of using the big ship that was there to pull in that ship or something,
Yeah.
and go hand to hand with them and just beat them into submission. But I feel like the villains are playing into this trope of we're going to do just enough to train up the good guys. And we're
Yeah.
going to throw enough situations at them to where they start working together as a team finally. These people that should never work together as a team, they have all these things working against them. Well, we're going to allow them just enough of a challenge to overcome all the time to where they learn to work together and they become a lethal team by the end, that's going to overcome us. It's like when we have the advantage, we don't take it. We're not allowed to win, and we just have to twiddle our thumbs until they're good enough to take us on.
Yeah.
And that's annoying.
Yeah,
So
I agree with the little quips going back and forth. I thought that was a little, I don't know, softening
Yeah.
of both of them. I thought that was kind of didn't need to be in there really.
that stuff's a good idea. And I've said before, you need characters to argue. You need constant tension in a show. You need people presenting opposite points of view, even on the same side. They can't if they just all agree with each other. There's no tension there. But when you're just creating it over kind of silliness
Hmm.
and you're just letting them express themselves in silly dialogue that
Yeah.
doesn't really advance anything or make me think any higher of the characters, it's I know I sound joyless. If you go watch Star Wars, we could critique all the same things in the original Star Wars. It's like, gosh, this dialogue's lame. But uh but anyway, I felt like it was a short episode that kind of wasted a lot of time.
Hmm.
Um we'd already seen the ship. They didn't need more than a few seconds to see that this was a hyperspace ring. That's all that was really established. And
Yeah.
now all I have to look forward to, the forest was very cool looking. But
I
again,
love the forest.
this is the small kind of things that bother me is when they were flying over the forest, the bad guys, and they're hiding in the forest, and then she says they must be hiding in the forest.
The whole planet
And
is a
literally the
forest.
only thing
Yeah.
is sky,
Exactly. Could you narrow
space
it
above
down a
that,
bit?
and a forest.
That's like flying over Hoth and saying they're
Looking
hiding in the
around in the
snow.
sky, I don't see any sign of their ship. They came from space. They're not up there. They must be hiding in the forest. It's like if I was her master, she'd be punished for saying that. I mean, she would just be outright. I know it's a tradition in Star Wars to be Captain Obvious, but no, there is no Captain Obvious on my ship. They're getting punished. And also, what happened to your scanners? I guess the ships just have none because they're little buckets. I mean, they have these hyperdrives, but they have these crap fighters, and they can't scan the forest to see that they're right there. She can't use the force to find the Jedi, which we've always established is
Well,
something
they
Jedi
did
aren't good at
address
hiding their
this.
presence. The
They
Sith
addressed.
are.
Okay, go ahead.
They addressed the force issue earlier with Balin when he said that as he had difficulty feeling her out with the force. He couldn't.
Oh,
He said
okay.
her connection to the force was murky, but her determination he could feel.
And
Well, could we find the most determined point in the forest and drop a nuke on that?
they addressed the mechanical part of it, I guess, because that's why they kept they turned the ship off immediately when they landed and even turned off Huyang the droid.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
quickly turned him off so that
Yeah.
she couldn't detect any power sources coming out.
Electromagnetic stuff or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
That's all admirable, but I still think a piece of metal in a forest,
Yeah,
I think you're gonna have some kind of sentience. I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've just watched so much stuff. Sensors work and like transporters or anything else. They work when they want
Yeah.
them to, and they don't when they don't want them to.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, I'm being a little nitpicky. The forest was really pretty. I thought it was a
Yeah,
great
that's a great
look.
set. That's
Yeah,
a
it was
great
really
Yeah,
setting for the
it's gonna make a
that
great
part of the
fight
show.
scene with
Yeah.
the all the leaves falling and stuff. Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about the final shot with Balin and sending the guys into the thing. I just looked a little too. I don't know if that was the volume or if that was too little green screeny looking for me.
Hmm.
That was just me. That's my version of a nitpick, I guess. But I just thought that was like, it just looks like an out of focus green screen thing in the back. It's like, I don't really believe he's standing in front of that forest.
Well, it takes training and years of dedication for me to
Right.
believe. It's like if the volume exists, why doesn't everyone use it? Well, no, I liked that shot. Just because I think Balon and Ray Stevenson commands anything they put him. They cleverly set him right in the front,
Again,
where
Yeah.
there's no
I
question
loved
who's in
him in there. I
charge.
just like this, like
He's
the
strong.
background
He's
was
the
bad.
strongest person there without question, and he's like a monolith of strength. But his face is showing doubt,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what he's worried. He's thinking over whatever his end goal is and how this stuff is interfering with it. I don't think he's very confident at heart. I think he's starting to experience. Maybe he believes in the Force works through fate. The will of the Force starts to show up when you can't destroy someone, when they get out of an impossible situation, and it's like, is the Force with them, and not with so much with me. I just wonder what he was thinking there, because he played it very specifically where his stature was showing strength to his troops. But he even the way he said, "Go hunt the Jedi down," it's like he doesn't expect to see those guys again.
Yeah.
I think he's just sending them as an inconvenience to delay them. So I just love that. I love the guy. I love the character,
Yeah.
and it was great staging there. I would like but too late now. But anyway, I won't go into that. It's too bad he's gone. Let's put it that way. Too bad he's gone. He's one of
Yeah.
the, just without having any great dialogue or anything, he's one of the best villains I've seen in a long time. As far as
Yeah.
being compelling to me and me wanting to see what he's gonna do next. So
Right.
Yeah. Well, what about the
I wanted to bring up something real quick.
the
Is it
other
okay?
sequence that we haven't? Oh yeah, go ahead.
It has to do with the Force
Go ahead.
and also with Gundark. What was your reaction when they had Jason
Oh yeah,
Syndulla?
that's right. We got to talk about Jason.
That's what I was about to bring up.
Jason for 3
I'm
Okay,
surprised
episodes.
you even got to ask me that.
You've been
You
just for
didn't
anybody
feel a
out
great
there who hasn't
disturbance in
seen,
the
Gundark's
force?
been wanting to see him since before the series. Like the very first time they announced this, it's going to have rebels in it. She's like, I wonder if Jason's going to be in there.
Yes,
So,
I did. I did jump out of my seat. For some reason, I just wasn't. He hadn't been there, and I wasn't expecting him to suddenly show up out of the blue. And then for him to ask, "I want to be a Jedi too. Can I become a Jedi?"
Yeah.
Does he know who his father is?
yeah.
Right.
So I
And did
loved
that
part.
strike anyone else besides me as odd, that this kid who probably has all the potential in the world is having to beg and there's no
Yeah.
one there?
He's not the
While
one
all
And
who's
the
then
been
training
taking
is
this
chosen.
with
girl who
Yeah.
has
Rebels.
no ability in the Force and forcing her to do what he could probably do
Mhm.
instantly.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
Yeah.
What is going on? And they put that scene in there specifically. He even said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I want to be a Jedi." I'm
Yeah.
surprised he didn't
Yeah.
have
And they
like
put it in there for a
toys twirling
reason.
around his
Yeah.
head that he was controlling with the Force or something. And Harris should have said, like, Jason, mommy's doing Thrawn stuff right now.
Mom's doing Thrawn
Use the Force
stuff.
toys back in the box. Don't bother me right now. I'll come see you later.
That's awesome. Oh, one really, I know we've been negative, but one really cool thing that I really liked, and I caught it the first time I saw it, and I know Greedo caught it as well because we talked about it. Because I saw it I saw it the first time on my own, but then when he got here, we saw it together, so it was his first time watching it. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, did you catch what that was?" And the room where they had the conference with the senators and Mon Mothma was the same room from Return of the Jedi, where they're having the whole talk about Endor and all that. I thought that was kind of really cool. They're still using, at that point, they're using the same capital ship because it's only like 6, 7 years, 8 years maybe after Return of the Jedi at that point. So the ship would still be in service most likely. So I thought that was kind of a cool, nod to the original trilogy as well. That was really neat.
Yeah, that is neat. And
Because I watched the whole scene and then I was like, wait a minute, there was something about that scene that I rewound and I was like, oh
Very
yeah, that's that
familiar.
room. That's so cool.
and to have Mon Mothma come into the series at that point in that setting was neat.
Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah, very much so.
It's sort of bad though when we're getting a kick out of seeing space meeting rooms from the past.
Space meetings, yeah.
I recognize that space meeting room.
And I will bring this up because I know, in case you guys didn't catch it, I know Greedo and I talked about this, but that the character who was being real snippy with Hera, and always basically saying that, oh, she's just using the whole Thrawn thing as a ploy to get resources to go search for Ezra. And they just kind of went back and forth, and she had that really harsh comment about, hey, were you in the war or what? Did you just sit back and wait to see who came out on top? And that character is actually from Resistance. So if you didn't watch Resistance, you wouldn't really know who that character is. And he was kind of a little piece of crap in Resistance as well. But he's actually the father of the main character in Resistance, but yeah, which you don't even see him until close to the end of the run of the show. But they do have him in a few episodes, and he's just kind of he's just a slimy political, trying to, how I can get above the, use politics to get myself up in the world, in the galaxy, basically. So anyway,
but I do have to wonder why they argue so hard against her. This is another thing that I think would have been useful if they had if they had talked about some other crisis going on that was demanding their attention. Even if it was like, well, these planets are talking about secession from the Republic,
Right.
and we have a
Yeah.
crisis right now, and we have to keep our fleet
But
handy,
instead,
to
it was
show
just this.
strength or whatever.
Instead, it was
Something.
just, oh, let's just help the people. It's like,
Uh-huh.
that's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
But it would have
Like,
I mean,
sounded
you don't
better if
have
you had a
they just
crisis.
showed a huge fleet, which I was impressed by the Republic
Yeah,
fleet. Actually, I
that
was
was
like,
really
wow, is that the
cool.
Republic? That's a lot of ships.
Mhm.
They couldn't spend one with Hera, who knows what she's
Yeah, just
talking
one
about.
ship. It's like, are you that hurting for resources?
Yeah,
and especially when
and
they
it's
got
like,
pretty
shouldn't the
good
military have some
intel.
command without having to go to kowtowing to you senators? Shouldn't they be able to do military commands to
I was going to say,
military?
shouldn't the
Yeah.
military handle that? Now, why do you have to go through the Senate to get approval?
Yeah.
And I don't understand just the easy dismissal of people calling out a whole group of people that attacked them, shouting "Long live the Empire," whatever it was, for the
Yeah,
I
Empire.
know.
And
And
just
then you follow up that
dismissed.
information.
yeah,
You
just
follow up that
totally dismissed it.
information by saying, "Oh yeah, those people are all throughout our government." They
Right. Yeah.
couldn't know.
Yeah. It's like that made it so much worse. It's like, yeah, that was a great
It's like, are
comeback by
you
them.
hear
It's like,
yourself right
yeah,
now?
well, long live the Empire. It's not quite the loyalty we're looking for.
Yeah. It's like
I
That
mean,
you
was a
guys
great
didn't even
line.
vet a shipyard that was taking
yeah,
all these armaments and high technology where it was going or anything.
Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed.
What
And
else are you
I
putting these creeps in charge of?
I did love the one point in that scene when Hera makes that comment and Mon Mothma doesn't step in. She just
right.
lets the guy take it. She's Hera just gives it to the guy right in the face. And
Yeah.
everybody's just silent. And then finally that one guy to the side
He
steps
broke
in
the
and says,
tension.
"We
Yeah, he's like,
appreciate your service."
yeah, we all appreciate your service.
General
Keep it going.
Syndulla.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that would be the moment you would think Mon Mothma would try to cool things down, but she's like, "No,
She
I'm gonna let
didn't.
that guy
I'm letting
take
her
what he deserves."
give him both barrels. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good moment. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand the disconnect is they're not seeing that if they've got those kind of fanatics
Well,
throughout
everything they
their
said to me was alarming. They're like,
yeah,
they didn't say there is no Imperial fleet. They said the Imperial fleet's scattered.
There's no
yeah,
central leadership. Yeah.
All you gotta do is send a message, meet me here, and in about 30 seconds,
Right.
there will be an
Yeah.
assembly of an Imperial fleet pretty quick, right?
Yeah. They act like,
Unless they've just run out of gas and
yeah, well,
can't
they
go
act like
anywhere.
because there's no central leadership now, there never will be,
Right. And then
Yeah,
they
which
say, oh,
makes
those
no sense.
loyalists? Yeah, we know all about them. They took an oath.
Right.
Every single thing they said was alarming. And then it's like, oh, Thrawn, we never saw a body or anything, but we've just decided he's dead.
Right.
It's like, you
Exactly.
guys
We just
just,
decided
every single
we don't
thing you
believe
said
he's
is
coming back.
dumb.
So why
and you
waste your
can't
time?
Luke needs to
spare
show
one
up.
ship to go
Amazing.
check it out.
Right.
Amazing.
Not
Everything you
not
just
one
said was
ship.
completely wrong.
But because of that, and I know I shouldn't say this because Greedo's head's already too big. We exactly. But I think that he's been proven right, but with his prediction from last episode, where he basically said that Hera, the character of Hera, is going to be relegated to side stories, and she's not going to be there. Like it's just going to be Ahsoka and Sabine going through this thing.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, Hera may pop in for a little help here, a little help there. It's not going to be like the group together again, not getting the band together, kind of a thing.
Yeah, because she was
I
unable to
don't know if
join
that's
them
been
later.
proven yet, but it
Oh, I
depends on
think
how
so.
she
I think so.
responds. And so far, she said, "I have to sit this one out because they
Yeah.
told me to." So
Yeah.
she's kind of leaving her rebel side behind
Mhm.
because the good guys are in charge.
Right.
But it does
But I
strike me
mean,
as really odd that she's sitting there with a probably force sensitive kid, and we're having all these discussions about force sensitivity, and her kid are sitting this one out. And Zev, I have no idea where he is. I was just
yeah, we
telling
don't know where he is.
Corellian when we watched it, I said, on the good guy side, I just feel a distinct lack of male energy,
Yeah.
that I feel like, well, for one thing, it's just the script. The script could just be bumped up and make all the characters that are in there a lot more interesting. But also, you took away every element of male energy and you left with a droid, which David Tennant's doing a great job with. But he's
Mhm.
like 3PO. He's not bringing,
Right.
any kind of male energy to it. And a character like, is it Zeb? I always get it wrong.
Zev, yeah.
Zeb or Zeb? A
Zev.
character like Zeb is just all about the male energy. And I feel like they could use someone there a little wilder and more
Who's
less
who's
restrained. And
smacking heads together or
yeah,
something? Yeah.
yeah, just having some of that, just a different point of view. It feels like, I know they've deliberately done this. They've got, this is about two female characters and their relationship and all that. I understand all that, but um, it just feels like it's lacking. The show is lacking a little something. When you take Rebels, you make a sequel, and you eviscerate half the crew.
Most of the
It's
crew,
gone or whatever, or put in a
Yeah,
position where
that's
they're
what
left
you
behind.
said that you made the comment before that this seemed like it needed to be called Rebels or
yeah,
something, a
like
sequel to
Rebel
Rebels
season
rather than
5,
Ahsoka.
basically. Yeah.
Because it seems like it's more acting as a direct sequel rather than something that features Ahsoka. And I think they just really haven't found their footing yet. I don't know that it's a lack of male energy. I don't know like what a gendered forms of energy or whatever, but it feels like they're on rocky ground and they're trying to stretch things out. It kind of feels so far like Obi-Wan did for the first few
Yes,
episodes.
yeah.
Like there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
padding because you're not exactly sure where they're going. And it seems like if they're going where I think they're going, well, this could be done pretty quickly, they could get to that space gate, and they could find
Yeah,
where Thrawn is or whatever within the first
technically
couple of
speaking, these
episodes.
3 episodes could have been wrapped up into 1 hour
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
We could have gotten just as far in an hour as we've gotten in, almost
And
3
see, I don't
hours.
think that's necessarily the lack of male energy, I
No,
think
no, no. I'm not
it's
saying
poor
that. They're two
writing.
different things.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm talking
agree
about
with
two
Greedo.
different
It's
things.
not,
It is
yeah,
poor writing.
yeah,
yeah, I think it's poor writing. I think
right.
you could
Yeah.
have a fine show with female characters that would be energetic
Absolutely.
and uh entertaining and compelling, but they just haven't quite made it there. So
Yeah,
No, I like I said, I understand this is becoming a story about the two women,
mhm,
yeah,
being paired together. I don't have a problem with that.
not at all.
It's the way it's turning out right now
yeah.
that it just needs some energy from somewhere. And I'm looking around going like, damn, at this point I kind of miss Ezra. I kind of
If you
miss
had
Yeah,
Zeb,
Zeb.
yeah.
I
yeah,
kind of even miss Kanan. You got Kanan's kid, who happens to be a son. It just seems like sometimes that choice to, you got to be careful. It's just, you have to know what you're doing, who you're focusing
I
on.
can
You have
see
to
what
give
you're
them plenty to
saying.
do. And
yeah.
yeah. And if it's a
I
Rebels
can see what you're
reunion, it
saying. I
feels
just
a little
don't know that
pale.
I agree with you about the source of the problem. I think that the problem really is I don't I think you could have a fine show without Zeb, and the other characters, but they don't
Sure.
have it, they haven't written it. So I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a horrible thing to say, but from somebody who grew to love Ahsoka, somebody who went from not watching Clone Wars for decades and being resistant to it to finally really loving it and loving that character, I would like something that is more compelling for her and something that has more, much better pacing. To me, that's been the central problem of the show is the lack of pacing. I can deal with the not having a complete understanding yet of what motives are because I feel like I sense some of what the motives are, implicitly rather than explicitly stated. But the pacing is really off to where it's doing a disservice, I think, to really great characters that I want to see more from.
Yeah.
And the villains really, I think, are the most compelling characters of the show so far, unfortunately. So they need to pick up the pace so that they can make the established characters more interesting to us. But maybe they will. I mean, we're in the 3rd episode, but again, this is only what, an 8 episode season. So
Yeah.
it's reminding me a lot of Obi-Wan in that way, like
Yeah.
limited series that really maybe should have been a movie or something.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
The two things that alarm me the most is that I'm just not attached to the dialogue and things. The dialogue part of it isn't winning me over. And then they keep choosing to illustrate and bring things to life that to me don't make sense. And this is what they did with Obi-Wan. And we said in our reviews of Obi-Wan, I feel like a script editor or someone could have gone back and looked and said, eliminate this, tweak this, and you would have had 90% of these weird vibes you're left with in these open-ended questions and these, why did I just see that kind of thing? That would have all been gone, most of it. You could have fixed it. So what's going on? You know, why are it's like putting someone with absolutely no sense of humor in charge of the jokes, you know, or you know, someone with no sensitivity to the force in charge of the force. But uh yeah, it's just weird. We're left every, you know, all these things that I pointed out in our reviews that just strike me as really wildly stupid. Why not write just something different? You know, where people don't have to be stupid in order for your characters to succeed. You know, or if they could succeed by taking a shortcut because it's clever, let them do it. You know, I mean, let someone be clever. Um, but Obi-Wan, we had all these weird, you know, things that made no sense. You know, women fighting two stormtroopers in armor with their bare hands, and Obi-Wan getting out of the water and just being dry instantly, and weird shit like that. Just and then hiding under the coat in plain sight, you know,
Yeah.
just oh, and
Hiding
then
under
just
the coat,
Hiding under the coat.
sat there and hovered there, firing
Yeah,
at people. Just stuff that
clearly.
struck you as wrong that you could have just fixed with just easy
I mean,
tweaks, you know.
when you're
And it's like
working on the
who's
show,
not catching this stuff?
but yes, the thing is like when you're working on the show and you're doing a scene like that, and your 10-year-old actress is going, seriously? It's like,
Yeah,
we're actually gonna do this.
yeah. These
You think
kids have to
people are gonna
pretend
buy
they
this?
can't see.
And then these adults will, oh yeah, it'll be great. It'll be perfect. It's gonna be a great scene.
Why don't you put her in charge?
Yeah, you have to put her in charge.
But this show is showing me an alarming propensity to do things that I don't understand, and it takes me out of it just as much as when you see a World War II helmet or whatever.
Right,
World War II.
right.
I didn't even think
Yeah.
about the planes. I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. They look like zeros or whatever. I
Yeah,
didn't think
I
much
thought it
of
was
it.
too much.
I was more like,
Yeah,
this is
was too much like a
predictable. You know,
zero.
like I know who's gonna die. But when they do stuff that just makes no sense at all, and it's not justifiable, and the only excuse is they have to be dumb. You know, my cast has to be dumb, my characters have to be dumb. I don't go for that. It really takes me out of it. I don't want to watch unless it's Dumb and Dumber or a comedy. I don't want to watch stupid people. You know,
Yeah,
for those of you out there watching us.
yeah.
Thank you very much for watching this stupid person.
All right, so let's do our ratings. Who wants to start this week?
I'll go.
Okay.
Hovering between a 6 and a 6.5.
Okay.
I was a 6 when I first watched it, and on the second watching, I liked it better. So maybe a 6.5.
Okay.
I'm still very much enjoying the series. You know, I'm not anywhere ready to give up on it or anything like that. I'm very much enjoying. I'm just disappointed in the pacing, and I think something much better. They could have made something much better.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5.5.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5 at the moment.
Okay.
Which is the lowest I've ever given anything, any of the
Yeah.
Star Wars TV shows, I think. But I have to think about, like, it's probably a 5. It's probably just average because there's good scenes, like seeing Jason there was cool. Hera was an improvement on her character. The visuals and music were great. I felt like all the scenes when they like, especially when they opened up the cannons on Ahsoka's ship, and kind of like Brandon Stark, she just decided to run straight across the field.
Yeah.
It's like, how long can our shield and hull and everything else hold? Let's just find out. But the visuals and music and everything, I really was struck by a couple of things that I thought were cool. But you can't get away from the story, right? And as much as I like these characters and everything, the story took a back seat here, and missed opportunities and too short, and just a lot of things that took me out of it. So only way to go, I think, is up. I hope.
Yeah.
Also, star whales. I gotta lose at least half a point for them showing up. Sorry, environmentalists.
Yeah, they don't bother me as much as they bother you guys, but maybe it's a clone.
It's a vendetta for me.
But, okay, so I'm gonna throw a curveball here. Greedo and Gundark have no idea I'm doing this. I literally just got the idea for this, but this is something that if you guys like it, I'd like to do this as a regular weekly thing. Let's pick our MVP for this episode. Who do you think was the strongest character in this episode? And I'm gonna go for I'm gonna say Hera was. I just thought that her character, even though she wasn't big part of the whole episode. I thought her scenes were some of the most compelling scenes. I liked her dialogue. I liked that we got to see, you know, her interact with her son. And she to me is the most improved character so far in the 3 episodes, and I choose her for the MVP of this episode.
I'll agree with that if I can pull Jason into it.
Of
Jason
course.
just
There you
made
go.
it for
Anybody that's
me.
in the episode, you
And
can.
then I want more of Jason.
Okay, all right. So
You'll
you
get it
thought
in
he
an
was the
animated
strongest
spinoff of
performer
him
on
and
this
Chopper.
episode?
You're gonna get it. Or a Lego thing with him and Chopper.
What do you
Uh,
think, Rodian?
that's a tough one. I would say either Sabine, because she dedicated herself to her lessons and actually tried and was asking the right questions.
Mhm.
And without a lot of snark and not really challenging, she was trying to be what Ahsoka wants her to be.
Right.
Or the droid, Huang, is that his name?
Right.
Huang,
Mhm.
because I agreed with his points. He's like, and Ahsoka really had no comeback for him
Yeah.
that I could see yet. You know, she's holding it back when he said, "Why are we doing this plot right now? You're like, why is the show going in this direction?" It's like, and she said, "You told her she had no talent. She has no talent." You know, I mean, I thought I was seeing his point of view more from the evidence
Yeah.
of what we
I
were
mean,
shown.
he's
So
not wrong. He's just being blunt.
no,
You know, yeah.
and I do think I do think it's a coup to get David Tennant on a show like this in
Mhm.
any regards. I think it's a shame almost not to have him playing, you know, like his physical presence.
Yeah.
But maybe this is the only way they could get him. And you take him any way you can get him. He's great. He's just as good a voice actor as anything else, you know, that he
Yeah.
does. So probably the droid. But Sabine, I gotta say, I mean, is it Sabine? Yeah,
Sabine.
Sabine bounced back in this for me. I felt her frustration a little bit because we are clueless too about what's going on, and so I felt a little more kinship with her. Like I understood where she was coming from. But she did a good job at it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's good. I have one final question about where the show is going from here. I was looking at, I became intrigued by the end credits since we were talking about the Game of Thrones title
Right.
sequence, it seems to be. And so I was looking up what are the places on the map in the end credits. And there's been a lot of Star Wars fans uh, decoded the runes on the map. It's a different language, never appeared in Star Wars before, but they said it has similarities to the Sith language, and is the implication is, I guess, it comes from the other galaxy. If it's a
Okay.
language
Yeah.
that's never appeared in the Star Wars galaxy, you know, it comes from the other
Interesting.
galaxy, and that people were wondering, well, is this other galaxy? Is there something even more ancient than the Sith? You know, and the Night Sisters coming from this other galaxy, and what might Thrawn bring back with him, you know,
Right.
when he comes to the Star Wars galaxy. And then I suddenly begin to wonder, well, why, you know, everybody's assuming Thrawn wants to come back.
Right.
Are you sure he even wants to come back? You know, he might be
He's been
the
there for
king of that
years
galaxy
now. Yeah. It's like
by
he's
now, you know.
got a whole new life.
Yeah, I don't know.
He could have even brought his people there, you know, like in
Yeah.
the
He could have brought the
intervening
Chiss people
intervening
there.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it made me
Exactly.
think about the Ray Stevens character, is it Balin is when he said when his Padawan questioned him, or his apprentice questioned him about what's going to happen with all of this. And he said, for us, there will be power, you know, power beyond imagining. Like, I wonder what he is thinking is there in that other galaxy that is
Mhm.
even more powerful than anything we've seen in the Star Wars galaxy yet. So
He
just
knows more than
finding
he's
out the
saying. Yeah.
idea, yeah, that just seems really intriguing to me. So now I'm
He's the
kind of
one
looking
who
forward
brought
to
up
what that
the
other galaxy.
he's the one who brought up the mythological stories that the Padawans used to tell each
Yeah,
other. And so he's got some, you know,
yeah.
it's kind of like he's like Reepicheep in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Very weird reference, but where his nursemaid told him as a small mouse, you know, when you go where the seawater tastes sweet, you'll know you found your destiny or whatever. So his whole life he's looking for that. I think he might think, um, like I said, maybe he wants to refound an order in his likeness, or maybe he feels like in this other
Mm.
galaxy there's a better connection to the Force or something that will make force wielders more powerful. Maybe they're more powerful there, and it's something he could bring back and
Yeah.
dominate this galaxy. Who knows?
Yeah, so just the things that the Star Wars fans have decoded with that map is maybe a lot more interested in what the galaxy might be,
I think that's the
and
most
what the
invigorating
implications of
idea we've
connecting
had
with that
so
of the
far.
galaxy might be.
I think so too.
Most people
Yeah.
seem to be in agreement that they're excited about what could be in another galaxy, because this one seems to be 90% Tatooine.
Yeah.
And that brings me up. I know we don't want to stick around here, but one more question. Gundark, at this point by episode 3, were you more into Book of Boba Fett, or are you more into this? When you were watching Book of Boba Fett and you got to episode 3, were you more
I was more in the
invigorated
Book
by
of Boba Fett. If I'm thinking back on the second episode of Book of Boba Fett, was one of the best of all live action Star Wars I've seen.
Me too.
Where he
Lore of the
joined
Sand People and all that.
yeah,
Mhm.
that
I think we
was,
had more questions
I
that
loved that
interested us and
episode.
things
So
during that show, the beginning of that
yeah,
show, than we have in this one so
yeah,
far. Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed. I agree.
I just think that's interesting
Yeah.
because it's kind of panned now, but
Yeah.
But it definitely has its promise.
yeah,
Hold on, something
they've taken such a
weird.
different tack with this one
Something
that
weird's
I don't
happening
know what
here.
to think.
Something weird. You hear that?
Oh, hi. You went from one universe to another. Did you
He
find
didn't
the
steal my
world between
dungeon.
worlds?
My room.
You found the world between worlds. Now, wouldn't it be something if I materialized next to you guys?
Oh, that would be
Now we would know we found the world between worlds.
Yes, we have force powers here at the Cantina Club. But that's going to do it for this week, and we will see you next week. Like, subscribe, leave us some comments down and down in the bottom, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us, guys.
You will like us. I will like you.
Subscribe.
We're seeing the Emperor later. We're gonna find out.
Hi, I'm Matthew Wood from Skywalker Sound. I play the voices of General Grievous and the battle droids in Revenge of the Sith and Clone Wars, as well as Bib Fortuna in The Mandalorian and Phantom Menace.
Wait, why are we here? I don't know.
Stupid battle droids, get out of the way! Hello there, this is General Grievous, and you are watching the Cantina Club.